Hi there, I'm Regan Ortman, and this is my ECS 210 Curriculum is Narrative. I'm going to talk about a few things that I've learned over the curriculum and how I've related them to other things and how they've impacted me. I'm going to talk about three things. The first being Kevin Kumanshiro's notion of common sense, and sort of the sense that I made of that. Number two being the Tyler rationale and my experiences with how that is built into our education. And I'm going to have a little something to show you about that. And the third being actually just sort of about Michelle Sorensen's lesson on gendering in the curriculum. And I'll just have some discussion about that. Beginning with Kevin Kumanshiro, I think this guy is pretty brilliant. A lot of the stuff that we read of his really just rings true, I think. And that the biggest of those being him talking about common sense. Common sense, by Kumanshiro's definition, describes preconceptions that teachers and students bring into the classroom. These are conventional routines and ideologies that define what most people think our schools should look like, or should be, or should teach. But these preconceptions are not always easy to spot, and we are often blind to the ways that our cultural habits are limiting us as individuals and as a collective. It almost takes an extra sense to see through the common one. And this is something that I think is really important. As teachers, we need to understand that we have this. We've all kind of been programmed, we've been raised with certain ideals, certain ideas, certain behaviors, and we sort of expect everyone to fit into those, and when they don't, it's hard on us as a teacher. We seem to lavish judgment upon students that don't speak the language of common sense. And it's daunting for students because they come into the classroom and there's just this culture that already exists that they have to sort of fit into. And in this scenario, we ignore. Well, it's easy to marginalize it. It's easy to not see how the common sense puts some kids on the back burner. And as a responsible teacher, as an ethical teacher, it's our duty. It's our job to try to reach every student in the way that best suits them. So common sense gets in the way of that. Common sense says the opposite, that you have to fit into something that is already pre-established, preconceived. Also in this context, truth is not knowable. Truth is already known. And I think that in my experience as a student, that was definitely something that I felt, that sometimes certain teachers sometimes, when they ask a question, they're looking for a specific answer, and it's not always. A lot of times it's unconscious. But you ask a question and you expect answer A. When a student gives you answer C, we dismiss it, and that tells the student that their ideas don't work, don't have meaning, and that can be misconstrued. And certainly, I mean, young people take that as, well, they don't mean anything. Their opinion doesn't matter. So why do they speak up? And this also fits into what Kumanshiro talks about not treating students as blank slates that come to our classroom, blank pages to be written on with whatever we want. Fill it with the curriculum, send them away. They bring their own knowledge to the classroom. They're already half full or half empty if you want, but they bring their own knowledge to the classroom, and it's our job to use the things that they bring to the classroom, the knowledge and the skills and the passions, and to help forge those into all the things that the curriculum wants. We want them to be good active citizens, and we want them to believe in social justice, and we want them to have a passion for lifelong learning, and we want them to believe in equality, and we want all these things, but we treat students as though that's all they know, and that's all they're going to know is what we give them. And that's a horrible way to establish a classroom. Learning happens at your own doorstep for everyone. And as teachers, we have to be those door-to-door salesmen that go to everyone's door, meet them there, and through a relationship, we come to common understandings. This idea of truth as known really is a good segue into my next discussion of the Tyler rationale. Tyler rationale comes from a man named Ralph Tyler, who in the mid-20th century revolutionized education systems by creating a linear model of curriculum. In his book, Basic Principles of Curriculum Instruction, he established a very mechanistic system of education. And that means that there's no discourse, that there is things that every student needs to know. And this sort of set up a factory line, churning out students with the same knowledge, the same skills. And of course this completely ignores what Kumachiro talks about, that everyone brings their own things to the classroom. And it's just heavily influenced by scientific method, reason, and it was hugely successful in its integration. And I think this should sound familiar to everyone who's been educated in the last, 60 years or more. But it's not successful in creating pedagogical potency. It formed a standard of teaching that, it formed a standard rather than an ideal. And for me, that's the antithesis of what I want my teaching to be. I don't want it to be the same thing every year. I want to meet my class and my students where they're at and build on what they have. And I want to have this ideal that I'm never going to fully reach, because that's the nature of an ideal, but something that I'm going to constantly be striving towards, constantly making myself better, constantly trying to make my students better. And having a pre-written, pre-made mechanical system that I just am going to use on every student every year, that just doesn't work. That's not going to produce the sort of students, the sort of learners, the sort of people that I dream of shaping. This idea of standardized teaching really created a data-hungry public. Parents, school boards, everyone wanted numbers, wanted broken down assessments of learning. And of course, it's not that easy. We attach arbitrary numbers and grades and letters to learning. And it sets up this system that students work and do what they can, do what the teacher wants in order to get the grade to make their parents happy or to make themselves happy, possibly. But that puts learning on the back burner. That puts knowledge on the back burner. And then we wonder why when students graduate, that they don't have this lifelong love of reading, of writing, of creating, of assessing, of being critical, of just expanding knowledge and expanding the mind, which is what education is all about. And furthermore, this sets up a classroom that is not designed to meet the needs of students and is not designed to facilitate strong learning. When we were talking about the Tyler rationale in class, I don't know why, but something came to my mind as I was doing assignments. I thought of the first Men in Black movie, something I hadn't watched in years. And there's this scene where Will Smith walks into the Men in Black facility, and he has this meeting with all these other really qualified, really high-achieving military men.
You're late. Sit down. My name is Zed. You're all here because you're the best of the best. Marines, Air Force, Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, NYPD. And we're looking for one of you. Just one. What will follow is a series of simple tests for motor skills, concentration, stamina. I see we have a question.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Maybe you already answered this, but why exactly are we here?
Son?
Second Lieutenant Jake Jensen, West Point, graduate with honors. We're here because you're looking for the best of the best of the best, sir.
What's so funny, Edwards?
Your boy Captain America over here. The best of the best of the best, sir. Yeah, with honors. You know, he's just really excited, and he has no clue why we're here. That's very funny to me. Y'all ain't laughing, though.
It's so funny. There's these egg-shaped chairs that they all have to sit in, and they're trying to do a test, and it's just not designed for them to be able to do well. They're all trying to find a way to write in their chair, and they can't get comfortable, and they can't write on their leg, and Will Smith is the one that really doesn't fit. He can't figure it out.
Okay, let's get going.
Want to get down on this?
Everyone has trouble because it's designed to work against learning. But Will Smith is the only one that he goes over and grabs that table. He breaks through the common sense. He breaks through this behavior of what you're supposed to do, drags this table over to accommodate his own learning. He takes his learning into his own hands. That's individual thinking. And that is something we have to encourage as teachers. We don't want to encourage these cookie-cutter thinkers who struggle through this process that we've set up. We want them to pull that table over. We want them to say, this isn't working, this is stupid. I can't work like this. This isn't going to help my learning. And to raise those concerns and to take their learning into their own hands. After that, they go into a shooting gallery and they have to shoot at these targets. And Will Smith kind of falters and flounders a little bit, and he takes one shot at the end, and he ends up shooting the one target he wasn't supposed to shoot. So then he has to defend himself against why he made this mistake, made this decision.
Edwards, what the hell happened?
Hesitated.
May I ask why you felt little Tiffany deserved to die?
Well, she was the only one that actually seemed dangerous at the time, sir.
How'd you come to that conclusion?
Well, first I was going to pop this guy hanging from the street light, and then I realized, he's just working out. And how would I feel if somebody come running in the gym, bust me in my ass while I'm on a treadmill? Then I saw this snarling beast guy, and I noticed he had a tissue in his hand. I realized, he's not snarling. He's sneezing. Ain't no real threat there. Then I saw little Tiffany. I'm thinking, 8-year-old white girl, middle of the ghetto, bunch of monsters, this time of night with quantum physics books. She about to start some shit, Zed. She's about 8 years old. Those books are way too advanced for her. If you ask me, I say she's up to something. And to be honest, I'd appreciate it if you eased up off my back about it. Or do I owe her an apology?
And he's the one with sort of abstract thinking, critical thought, and of course he has a disregard for authority. But often I think the students that really have that individual thinking, often that comes hand in hand because that's the scenario that they exist in. That's the context. They can't think individually unless they go against the status quo unless they rebel against what is established for them. So I think that individual thinkers are sort of built that way through the system because they don't fit into that mechanistic establishment. And the most telling part is right at the end. They lead all the Marines and the servicemen out, and he says,
Gentlemen, congratulations. You're everything we've come to expect from years of government training.
Brilliant. That is so brilliant. And I think that it is exactly what I've been talking about with the Tyler rationale. We know exactly what we're going to get with the Tyler rationale. We know exactly what we're going to get. We're going to get the same people churned out over and over. The same education. We want everything samesies. But the one that really stands out, the one that is really qualified, is the one who thought for himself, the one who had that individual thinking, had the imagination. And I think that this clip just really, really enhanced my understanding of the Tyler rationale and how it has shaped our classrooms. Lastly, I'd like to talk about Michelle Sorensen's lesson on gendering in the curriculum. More specifically, how she brought to light that we sometimes treat the other as fragile. And this was really illuminating for me because I've seen it often, and I think we're all guilty of it in our own way. When teachers or people try to talk about issues that we're uncomfortable with, whether it's sexuality, whether it's gender, whether it's racism, classism, all the isms, we treat it as fragile because we are uncomfortable with it for ourselves. We don't really want to talk about it, and so we tiptoe around it. We're walking on eggshells. And treating the other as fragile is othering. It only serves to other more. And it's important for me. I don't want to force social justice down students' throats. I want to open the door so that they can walk through it themselves. They can explore the room themselves. Force-feeding these issues to students means, honestly, a lack of patience and vision and results in concept rejection or asphyxiation. I want to be a teacher that's not afraid to make students uncomfortable, not afraid to make myself uncomfortable with their preconceptions. When we treat these things as fragile, it makes it like ripping off a Band-Aid. We're gonna do this quick. It's gonna hurt for a little bit, and then it'll go away, and we can get back to the real learning. And that's, I think, don't do it then. Don't bother, because you're probably doing more harm than good. I want my teaching to be a relationship of exchange, and treating the other as fragile only, like I said, only others further. I like this analogy I've built of comparing it to a home run derby. In a home run derby, pitcher and batter are sort of on the same team, and the pitcher's trying to throw it down the line so that it can be hit out of the park. You're trying to hit it as far as you can. And this is a good analogy to start with for teaching. Now, the teacher, as the pitcher, it's your job to deliver a ball as accurately and powerfully as you can, right on target, so that all the hitter or the student has to do is swing. Now imagine if you take that ball and you switch it out with a glass one. How does this exchange change? You're going to do it's fragile, so you're going to do a little underhand throw, and when the student swings for it, it's going to smash into a million pieces. and all the king horses and all the king's men aren't going to be able to put that fragile ball back together again. You're not going to get anything out of it. You're not going to knock it out of the park. You're going to completely miss it. And more than missing it, it's going to be broken into pieces, and it's going to be a mess. It's going to be an absolute mess. No one's going to know what to do with that, least of all the student. Alternatively, if we set up this idea or this aura of fear around the whole process, then when you throw the ball, a student's going to close their eyes and they're just going to swing and they're going to hope for the best. And of course, if they don't swing with any accuracy or confidence, what success rate is that batter going to have? Furthermore, think about how this construction will make the other feel. It's going to make them feel more othered. If there's fear to talk about these things or oversensitivity in talking about it, then do you think that a queer student is going to step up to bat? No, of course not. That climate doesn't exist for them to feel comfortable. And it starts with uncomfortability in the teacher. So for me, that's something that I want to really work on is, of course, sometimes these things are going to feel uncomfortable. That's natural. That's how society has built them, and that's the whole point of why we're talking about them, is to get rid of that uncomfortability. So of course it's going to be an uncomfortable process, but I think a lot of good things happen in uncomfortability, when we have to step outside our shell, when we have to challenge our preconceptions. That's when real learning happens. And that, I think, begins with the teacher. We have to challenge it within ourselves first. And we have to come confident and unafraid, but also very humble to the class, and just be ready to pitch